I shared Christy's life for a while with a remarkable young actor called Hugh O'Connor. But for everyone involved in the film, all our desire to make the film, all the strength that we needed, all the pleasure that we took in making the film, came from Christy Brown. When he was alive, he needed very little encouragement to make his voice heard. Now he needs a little more. And I'm truly grateful to you that in honoring me with this award, you're encouraging Christy to carry on making his mark.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome to Ruined Childhoods. If you are a repeat listener, we welcome you back. If you're joining us for the first time because you were like, hey, there's actually a podcast talking about my favorite movie of all time, My Left Foot, my favorite biopic about an Irish artist with cerebral palsy. I apologize for mumbling. My favorite Academy Award winner, my favorite Daniel Day-Lewis Academy Award winner. We're glad you're here. Thank you. My name is Dan, and over there on the other side is John. John, how are things there on the other side?
I'm good, and I have to just jump in right away and let you know there are other podcasts that talk about My Left Foot, and I want to start this episode addressing the fact that Dan and I are not adequately able to speak to the representation of those who have cerebral palsy or who want to hear an interpretation about the portrayal of somebody with cerebral palsy in My Left Foot. For that, I highly recommend a podcast, actually specifically a February 11th, 2021 episode of a podcast called Cripple Threat. That talks a lot about My Left Foot, and it is with some incredible hosts who themselves have disabilities and speak to a lot of movies that involve such things, and they can speak to it on authority, whereas we cannot. So
right. Yeah.
I'm going to link to that episode in this episode's description so that people can listen to that if they want to hear about that. But we are here to talk about the movie as a whole and to BS a little bit about what we would do to bring it back as a sequel, a prequel. Although and Dan, I don't know. Is this our first biopic? It may be our first true biopic. I know that we've done movies where it's inspired by somebody or based on the events of something that's happened, maybe more of a situational thing, but really about a specific person. I don't think that we've done such a thing before. So
I will scroll the archives while you synopsize.
Go ahead and scroll the archives. Yeah, I'll go ahead and synopsize because this is one that truly chronicles the life of a particular person. And this movie goes up until a certain point. But I feel like My Left Foot captures the essential moments of the life of this particular person. So here we go. Irish artist and author Christy Brown never had it easy. His large family was poor, his father was an alcoholic, and to top it all off, he had cerebral palsy. He spent his youth struggling to express himself, but when he proved that he could write using his left foot, it displayed his tenacity and intelligence. Over the years, Christy honed his skills and became a fixture in his community, especially with the help of his brothers. But after a kind doctor named Eileen took notice of his abilities, she worked hard with Christy to have the tools to be able to speak. Over time, he fell deeply in love with Eileen, an emotion that, when challenged, Christy had a hard time processing. And his alcoholism did did him no favors. As his art career began to take off, so did his writing, resulting in the completion of his memoir, My Left Foot. Christy's story culminates at an event at which Christy is to be honored, where he becomes enamored with his temporary caretaker, Mary. But this time, his feelings may have a chance at being reciprocated. So that kind of sums it up. Christy Brown was a very talented artist, and I don't even want to say disabled artist. Christy was a very talented
really
artist.
Talented artist. Yeah.
Like
Period.
Full stop artist.
End of story.
End of story. That's it. And to understand the triumphs of this character, getting through all of these hardships is really something to be celebrated and to, make a biopic out of.
I mean, the fact that he lives, like, I'm sure, and really, I think this is my kind of major takeaway from the movie outside the, presumably great, just because I have not read or heard of any controversy surrounding the performances, the performances all around, but particularly Daniel Day-Lewis and Brenda Fricker as Christy Brown and his mother, respectively. I remember seeing this movie. I think the first time that I saw it was definitely like at home as it would have been, I don't know if I rented it. But I think it was like taped off of HBO. So whenever it would have been on HBO, so I'm guessing.
Where did you rent it from? Where it was taped off of HBO?
No, I didn't rent it. I said I don't.
You didn't rent it. Okay. You were just eager to get it however you could.
No, I was like, get me. I got a pirated VHS. I knew someone who could get the old Academy. That was how I saw Dances with Wolves.
Really?
Was from courtesy, I believe, of our cousin Jan.
Okay,
aka Aunt Janice.
Okay, so
anyway,
really, she had a bootlegged copy of Dances with Wolves, and that's
I think it was a screener. It was I remember it was like 2 tapes, and I remember we had it at the house like for a long time. But
really?
Anyway, I'm pretty sure that my first time seeing My Left Foot, it was not a rental. Though as I was with pretty much anything that was nominated for the Academy Awards, I was interested in seeing it. And I remembered, and it's the way that the film is constructed, it is very, especially if you're a, cinephile, 12-year-old as I was, or 13 maybe by the time that I saw it, it was it was just impressive. I didn't know who Daniel Day-Lewis was. It's not like I had not seen A Room with a View. And I believe he had, like, I think prior to that, maybe a small part in like a Bond film or something, if I remember correctly. Anyway, long story short, it was the first thing I ever saw him in. And when he won the Oscar that year for Best Actor, I was like, well, yeah. And I was a kid. I didn't know much. It was also nominated for Best Picture that year, which it arguably deserved to win over Driving Miss Daisy.
Right.
That's kind of the the hindsight of it all. But it it won Best Actor for Daniel Day-Lewis, Best Supporting Actress by Brenda Fricker, nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Director for Jim Sheridan. It was his first movie that he ever directed.
Yeah, and I felt really, well done. Jim Sheridan Also for In the Name of the Father.
Get Rich or Die Trying.
Yeah,
No. Can I? Okay, I want to throw out one more Jim Sheridan movie though, because
Sure.
it's such a. I remember I saw it in the theater, kind of on a. It was one of those like, oh, this is what's playing right now. I have this amount of time to kill, and it was In America, with Patty Considine was in it, and I want to get the actress's name right. I want to make sure I'm not. I don't botch it. Jaimin Hunsu is in it, and I remember it was about an Irish family moving to New York, I believe. I think it was semi-autobiographical, or just plain autobiographical. And let me see, where is it? Yeah, it's semi-autobiographical. Samantha Morton.
There you go.
That's who's in it. Yes. And she's wonderful. And I remember that movie being just so touching. Just like, so it felt so personal. It also made a film called The Boxer with Daniel Day-Lewis, which was good. And did you ever see Brothers with Tobey Maguire and Jake Gyllenhaal? How is it?
It is a straight up drama. There's nothing light about that movie. It's very intense. I saw it one time, I think when it first started. It maybe appeared on like a streaming service, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And very intense, a lot of big acting going on in there. And it's definitely not one to watch repeatedly. But I remembered thinking like, it's good. I had no problems with it. I'll just say that.
Right. It doesn't necessarily seem like the most like entertaining movie in the world.
Yeah, it's post Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. I'm sure that he had a lot of things that he wanted to prove to people about his, acting chops, and because that was right around the same time as probably like Gatsby, and I don't know, just right around that same era where he was kind of getting back into it.
I think a couple of years before that, but post
around that era,
Spider-Man.
Yeah. So I thought that it was. I thought it was fine. Jim Sheridan, no slouch at all. And to be partnered up and repeatedly with Daniel Day-Lewis. This was as we were saying, Daniel Day-Lewis's like big moment. And really came out,
his coming out party. If you
he came out very strong. Yeah, and honestly, it's like the performance is really amazing. It's really, really great. And also, credit where credit is due, Hugh O'Connor, who plays young Christy Brown.
Oh,
absolutely mind-blowing.
Yes.
Absolutely fantastic.
You know what?
And deserves just as much credit, if not more, than Daniel Day-Lewis.
In a very similar way, and it really I guess in a few respects. So a film that came out in 1996, Shine, reminded me of, not just because Shine is about Jeffrey Helfgott, who was not Jeffrey. Was it Jeffrey Jeffrey Rush?
It was Jeffrey Rush. Yeah.
Yeah. David Helfgott, okay. Who is on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And was kind of discovered to be this like masterful pianist. The actor who played him as a child, Noah Taylor.
Oh, okay.
Who went on to do, Almost Famous. He was like the manager, band manager in that. But I remember being like, Jeffrey Rush got nominated. I was like, dude, what about Noah Taylor? Because he like really nailed it as well. Yeah. So yeah, same way. And who's the actor who played his father?
Oh,
I want to mention him because I thought he was fantastic.
That is a great question. Let me It seems like you're
think
looking it up at the same time that I am too.
Might have been Ray McAnally.
Yeah.
I love
Ray McAnally.
I love the scene when it's after Christy is born and he's at the pub and the you know, like this one guy is like really, you know, needling him about the fact that his son was born with cerebral palsy. Although not that specifically.
And it also should be known, this, you know, that part would have taken place in the 30s. I think 1932 was when Christy Brown was born, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
so the understanding of, you know, something like cerebral palsy between then and now, not to say that we've come a long way, but we've certainly come some way. But
yeah, I mean, like the honest, like, you know, that's not the term they would have been using. No. But when and the insult he throws at him, and I think this is one of the aspects I picked up on more now than I did watching it at, like, you know, 12 or 13. But the whole, like, insinuation that, like, that, like, he's done breeding, like he's done fathering children, which, you know, in this, you know, small Irish Catholic community, of course, is, you know, that's a, you know, huge value. And
right.
I mean, clearly in the Brown family, because there's a few children who don't survive, who did not survive.
I think that out of like 22 children, 13 survived.
Right. Yeah, they say it. He says it at some point.
I want to say that in like in Christy Brown's like Wikipedia page. Let me see. Christy Brown was born into a working-class Irish family at the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin in June 1932. His parents were... he had 22 siblings. Out of these 22, 13 lived, while 9 died in infancy. Yeah, it's...
I mean, he survives. You know, they're not... you know, they're basic... They are living in poverty. They're not...
Yeah.
They're not, well, like, you know, they all share beds.
Yeah.
You know, they're in this tiny house, but, you know, it's like and I'm sure this movie clocks in under 2 hours. There is so much more to the story, and I have not read My Left Foot. I have not done research on Christy Brown. I am sure there is much more that we're not seeing because, you know, all in all, what we're seeing is, and they allude to this at one point, refer to his mother as, like, you know, the old woman who lived in a shoe.
Right.
And what? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and Brenda Fricker is so incredible as his mother. Somebody who you can tell just wants everything for her children, and the fact that one child, you know, is born with a huge deficit really puts it all out there for him. And and you know, goes out of her way to even go against her husband's wishes in order to do things so that, you know, Christy can have a better way of life, like saving up money for a wheelchair for him when they don't even have a pot to piss in. They're eating porridge for every meal. And it pisses off the father, but man, like, just to give him the human decency of not having to be pushed around in a wheelbarrow is, you know, like bare minimum. But that's a struggle for them. It's a struggle because they're so poor, and you know, he says that he's out of work for, like, you know, 9 months or something, and they're still trying to get by. I mean, it's a real show of tenacity for the whole family, but to understand that Christy still was able to create so much and develop so incredibly, despite all of the entire world working against him. It's amazing.
And it felt like it's kind of like you have this person who clearly has all of this to express, and he's not given a body with which he can do that freely, but that maybe is what it's almost like, it has to come out in some way, and it's like, all right, this is what you're given.
Yeah.
Make it, this is what you're working with, and just how it pours out. Like, and you really see that the evidence in the film is that when he writes the word mother, and and I think that comes after the mother like falls down the stairs, right? Yeah. So that's after, and it's interesting because it's something that you'd think they would come back to, but it's fine that they don't, is that she doesn't fall down the stairs while carrying him.
Yeah.
She falls down the stairs after carrying him, and then she's going back downstairs and falls, and then he hears that and like drags himself. And this is, you want to talk about Hugh O'Connor? I mean, you want to talk about that performance? Like, here's the scene for the
amazing,
the
completely
nomination,
breathtaking. Yeah.
Oh my God, him getting to his mother and just getting to the point where he's just slamming himself against the door,
right?
Calling for help.
Another thing to consider is that Daniel Day-Lewis plays this character during a time in his life, or for the most of the time in his life, when he is able to articulate his thoughts through spoken word.
Right.
And Hugh O'Connor is playing the character who he has to be able to show that he's got so much going on internally, but just can't get it out. And that is what's amazing.
It comes through so clearly, and without words, and with such limited movement, but his face and is so well done. And again, I mean, and I suppose credit also goes to cinematography and editing.
Sure.
Again, first time filmmaker here, or first time director of feature director, I guess. Anyway, it's such a powerful movie, and it is also, one thing I had forgotten about it was the moments of levity, the moments where they make you, like the scene where they're playing soccer and he's it's uncomfortable to watch him blocking the shots with his head, but it's also like, well, this is what they do.
Well, the way that Daniel Day-Lewis portrayed it, I think was also really smart, and the expressive nature of the performance shows you that this isn't a moment of weakness for him. It's him using his, playing to his own strengths and wanting to be part of the whole crowd. And also it's like, credit to his brothers for just like, he can do this just the same way any of us can. He just does it differently.
Well, and that's the whole vibe of their family. And that's one of the things that's something that I like about it, in that levity, is that idea that just like, okay, you're a Brown, like, like when the dad, when he writes mother and the dad's like, he's I know. And it's like, okay, it shouldn't take that, but it is that feel good there. But the thing is, you get
the
that
30s. Yeah.
Right. But you also get that throughout from the way he's treated by his mother and his siblings. And the way, mostly brothers and one sister. But the way that he's treated, you're right, the way that it's acted shows that, okay, this is not him being taken advantage of or being used as some type of, like toy for their amusement. He's
Right.
a part of the fun.
Yeah,
They're including him in on the fun.
absolutely. Yeah. And despite the fact that he has so many moments throughout his day of struggle, there are these moments in his day that are filled with joy thanks to, his family's support.
Well, my God, the scene in the bar after their father's funeral.
Oh, yeah. They're
Yeah.
singing. Yeah.
Well, when the guy's talking shit.
Well, that's
And-
really where you see a lot of his personality coming out, where he's just like, I don't give a rat's ass. I am proud of who I am. I am proud of my family despite our shortcomings. And
Right.
he is just like, screw you for trying to tell me how I can mourn the loss of my father.
Well, and I love how Christy is the one who's like, telling him, because they're all, all the brothers are like, all right, we're going to fight this guy.
Yeah.
And Christy's like, no. And he like, wheels over to him, to this guy and, says this whole thing to him. And I forget what the guy says in return, but then when Christy just fucking kicks the glass
Yeah.
out of his hand. And
Well, he says to him, like, I don't fight cripples or something like
right.
that.
Right.
Yeah, and he's just like, screw you. I'm going to kick the glass of beer out of your hand and right into your face because
Right.
his left foot works pretty damn well.
Yeah, I know it does. It is one of those where it's like, oh man, okay, all right, you get that.
Yeah. And, just kind of talking a little bit more about the production and about Jim Sheridan, touching a little bit on, portrayal of people in the disabled community in film. It's always a big debate. I feel like lately, the message just gets louder and louder of like, people who are in marginalized communities need to be portrayed by people who are in those marginalized communities in pop culture and media. And, this is a movie from, was it 89?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Jim Sheridan, kind of looked back at it and thought like, at the time, I, don't think I would have done anything differently. And he's like, but, now understanding what we now like understand a whole lot better, and that's because of advocacy groups. It's because of people, with louder voices, advocating. And he said that if he was to do it now, he would have done it a lot differently. And that's the right message. It's just like,
Yes.
yeah, there are a lot of directors who would have just been like, no, just go for the best person for the job. And it's like, no.
No, that was the right.
Like, if
the
you're
right thing
telling
to say,
this,
though. Is there any controversy over like Daniel
there's
Day-Lewis?
no controversy that I've seen that's like explicit controversy, because at the time it wasn't as, understood to be an issue. But
Right.
looking back on it in retrospect, a lot of people are like, and this is just to kind of say what I have seen that people have written about it, is just like, it's maybe not the favorite movie for people who are in disabled communities for that reason, but it's not to say like, that it's, I don't know, at major fault or anything.
I wonder if the fact that Daniel Day-Lewis method acted and like stayed in character the entire time.
That's another thing that I wanted to talk about. I'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, I think that it's just like, it would have been better had it been somebody with cerebral palsy.
Right.
But that kind of just goes into like, at the time, people weren't thinking that way about, wanting to include, different voices. Not that Daniel Day-Lewis was like a name the way that he is now, but it was certainly somebody who, it wasn't part of the casting process to kind of go that route. Now it would be, hopefully, but
I have to, if I can interject, and I want to phrase this. I'm not saying this to like jokingly. I'm saying it's kind of like, and right, Daniel Day-Lewis did not necessarily, this was the film that established that reputation, but it's kind of like, I think of other roles played by that were cast non-representatively, like Sean Penn in I Am Sam comes to mind.
Yeah.
I think of, and it's like, if you're not going to have somebody from that community playing the part in this, especially in this circumstance, Daniel Day, could you do better?
Hard to say. It's hard to say. But, Jim Sheridan himself said if he was to do it again, he would do it
right.
These days with somebody that would properly represent that particular community.
And that is
because
absolutely, even like, that is, absolutely. And by the way, speaking of hindsight, I was just looking on the My Left Foot page here. And there's a note here about the Hollywood Reporter in 2015 polled hundreds of Academy members and asked them to re-vote on controversial decisions. And it went, and in this one, they gave the 1990 Oscar for Best Picture to My Left Foot instead of Driving Miss Daisy.
Right. Yeah, so, I saw that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so going back to another thing that you were saying about Daniel Day-Lewis's method acting, this is the first time that Daniel Day-Lewis like implemented method acting in his performance. And of course, we all know it is a great performance. Perhaps it is thanks to method acting, maybe not. Method acting has been coming up a lot lately in the media with
Brian
like
Cox.
Succession, and Brian Cox kind of shitting on Jeremy Strong's method acting, and he's like, just act. Like, and
that echoes. That's, I think we talked about it on the marathon. Did we do a Marathon Man? When Laurence Olivier with like Dustin Hoffman stayed up for like 3 days straight. Yeah. So and Olivier was just like, why don't you try acting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Daniel Day-Lewis, let's just say his method acting didn't result in him making a lot of friends on set because, he demanded that he be pushed around in a wheelchair and that people feed him and treat him as if he were Christy Brown. And
who could be difficult.
Absolutely. And, Daniel Day-Lewis, of course, continued on this practice. There's stories about him, on the set of Lincoln, staying in character as Abe Lincoln. I think that he like still texted people and stuff like that, but he was like as Abraham Lincoln.
But he was texting Ulysses S. Grant.
Well, he was texting Sally Field, but as Abraham Lincoln. It's like, I loved you and Mrs. Doubtfire.
And she texted him back as Celeste Talbert.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'd watch that. I would just watch a movie of the two of them texting each other, Lincoln and Celeste Talbert.
Yeah, I don't know if Soap Dish is necessarily the movie that she would tap into for her character work, but who knows?
I don't know. Would be amazing if she did.
It would be amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, back to your question, by the way, of is it pronounced biopics or biopics?
I pronounce it biopic because it is a biographical picture.
Right. Okay. That's where I lean. So we have not done. This is our first like straight up traditional
Like true biopic,
right? Because we did quiz show, we did things that
Quiz
tell
show-
true stories, but
right.
they do not tell the story of
It
a
doesn't
person's
chronicle
life.
somebody's life. Exactly.
Right. So this is our true, and
Is quiz show the only other one that's based on real events or
no? Well, I mean, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid,
right? But there's a lot of like allegedlys involved with that one.
Oh, hold on, there was another one like Inherit the Wind, the true story.
I was like, when did we do that? And then it just came back to me. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh my God.
No, yeah, I had fun talking about Inherit the Wind. Amadeus,
yeah. Amadeus is a take on a biopic, I would say.
Right. Yeah. That's a big stretch there. So, right. This is really the first traditional biopic we've done. Yeah. And I was trying to think of like the great biopics. It's definitely not the first one we've talked about doing because, like one of my favorite movies, period, not just biopics, is La Bamba.
Oh yeah.
So, and I was also thinking of like, because I feel like there's been a resurgence of that genre, and so first you kind of had like the mid-aughts, like Ray, Walk the Line, and that spawned
definitely
Walk Hard.
Right. Well, I mean, all of those combined spawned Walk Hard.
Right.
Yeah. The musical biopic is definitely a big one. I mean, there was Get On Up.
Right. Well,
which was around the same time as
there's
Walk
the
Hard.
Chadwick Boseman double feature of Get On Up and 42.
And 42.
So,
right. Yeah.
But you've got Respect. I Want to Dance with Somebody more recently.
True. Yeah.
Less traditional in the genre would be something like Love and Mercy.
Love and Mercy is like a different take on a biopic.
Right. It's a less traditional. I would still call it because it kind of bridges two parts of his life, but it just doesn't, it's not chronological and it's not necessarily set up in a.
It's the way that it's presented is just a different way of doing a biopic.
No, and it's very. I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it.
We've gone on record about Love and Mercy a bunch of times.
Absolutely, but I like no need to hold back from it now. But yeah, like movies like What's Love Got to Do with It?
Yeah.
In the 90s, but I was thinking of more of like 21st century ones and couldn't, it's what was the last really like high profile biopic, like Oscar biopic?
Elvis?
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Right. I forgot. Well,
you mean like the one that just happened?
Maybe traditional biopic because that one
it's all Baz Luhrmann. Sorry.
It is.
But there's also like Bohemian Rhapsody, which I would argue is also Freddie Mercury biopic. It doesn't go from his childhood, but it goes from his youth up through the end. Almost the end.
The Elton John one I liked a lot more.
Rocket Man.
Rocket Man.
That's a lot of fun.
I thought that one was great, and that was I thought more of the traditional biopic.
Well, it was, but also it was a fun musical because it the way that it used the music. And in more of like music video style, telling
it was
the
appropriate
story
to its subject. It was
100%, yes,
wildly in a way that Bohemian Rhapsody was not. Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah. Anyhow, we're not talking about that. But just in thinking of this genre, because My Left Foot, what I appreciate about it is that it's tidy, but it also does leave that like okay, well there's more here that we're not seeing.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, we only get a glimpse of his, art career. And, we see him like start to write, and then all of a sudden he like has a book.
Well, which I guess the idea is, read the book, but
Sure. And also, what we haven't mentioned yet is the book that he's better known for, which is Down All the Days, which is, I'd say, immensely popular. I think more so in Ireland than it is here. It's definitely inspired a lot of other great pop culture from Irish artists. But that I feel like is his, more of his masterpiece than My Left Foot. I was actually wondering if you had read that, but since you hadn't brought it up, I guess
no.
Not. Down All the Days.
Down All the Days. Is it also biographical?
I believe so. But yeah, U2 has a song called Down All the Days. The Pogues have a song called Down All the Days, and it's all because of this. Yeah, it's an autobiographical novel. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So,
and yeah, but one other thing I wanted to mention, huge shout out to Fiona Shaw, who plays Eileen, who people would probably remember better from the Harry Potter movies.
Petunia.
Yes. And she's just really fantastic. And, when I saw her, I was like, oh my God, now you could recognize her in so many things, but I think the Harry Potter movies really, really cemented her into, I think a more, modern day world. But, she's just been active for such a long time, like very, very active.
She's one of those people that you just recognize.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, even if you don't know what her name is, you're like, Fiona something. You're like, it's gotta be that. She's got like just that. I don't know, that look. I don't know. The person I compare it to, the American counterpart to me is like Lynn Thigpen.
Okay.
Where it's like, I'm not sure what her name is, but if you said it was Lynn Thigpen, I would not be surprised.
Yeah. She's done a lot of voice work and narration. So if you don't recognize her face, you might recognize her voice. She's also been in, she was in Fleabag. She was in Ammonite. I don't know if people really saw Ammonite. I liked Ammonite. Killing Eve. She's just been really active. She very recently was in Andor. So the lady acts.
Yeah.
Just like Jim Sheridan, no slouch.
Fiona Shaw, she works.
Yeah. Deservedly so. And she was great in this. I thought that, you totally understood why Christy would, be so enamored by her.
Yeah,
and
of course.
When, he finds out that she's engaged to this other dude,
who I gotta give that actor a shout out, Adrian Dunbar, who I recognized him. And, who is that guy? What do I know him from? Like, what other like British Miramax film did I see him in the 90s? And it was The Crying Game.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of like the head of the little like IRA sect that Stephen Ray is a part of in that film. One of my favorites.
Haven't seen it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It just hasn't happened. It's not for lack of interest. It just hasn't happened. But that's cool. That's great that he's, a recognizable person. What year was Crying Game?
93?
93? Yeah.
93.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
So around the time that you saw My Left Foot from a pirated back alley VHS tape of somebody who put a camera up to HBO when it was recording, might have been around the same time that Crying Game came out.
No.
So
been earlier.
Okay, fine. So you saw the Crying Game and you're just like, I recognize that guy from that pirated copy I found.
No, I didn't say
in the
that
woods.
I recognized him when I saw the Crying Game. I recognized him I recognized him when
Hey, I'm goofing, man.
Okay.
We're talking about a real serious movie. I kind of want to goof a little bit.
Understood.
And there's
Sorry.
only a few things that we can goof about, and one of them is this fact that you might have seen this in a weird pirated VHS tape.
This pirated, well, and actually the interesting connection here is that once upon a time there was this back in my acting and auditioning days in New York, I got cast in this web series, and I forget what it was about, but my character was Bootleg Barry. And my segment was where I reviewed the bootleg DVDs that you'd buy in the, less patrolled subway stations.
Got it.
Or on the subway, movies that were in the theater. And
yeah,
I think what did I do, Team America or something like that. But
it was that era.
Yes, it was that era. But that's all I can think about is you're talking about this bootlegged filmed on a camcorder through someone's window of a TV screen of a and we're talking about a tube TV screen.
Oh, CRT.
Not
high end at all. Zenith.
19 inches maybe at this.
Yeah, a big screen.
Maybe 25. I don't know. Yeah, no, we're not talking anything impressive. The most worthy part of that catch would be the HBO intro, the new movie. Yep. Oh, but I mean, I'm sure if this was a prestige film, it had the full Saturday night debut with the whole flyover of the whole town.
Amazing.
Seriously.
I love it.
Iconic. Anyway, anything else to say about the film itself?
I really enjoyed watching it. It is not an easy watch, but I think that there's a lot to admire about the fact that this movie exists and celebrating an artist and writer who is, looked upon in Irish culture, especially as being, a real triumph. I feel like I'm using the word triumph a lot in this one, but, somebody who, really stood out in the Irish arts community and cultural community. It's somebody who I didn't really know about. I've heard of Down All the Days, and certainly I heard of the movie My Left Foot, but I didn't know anything about Christy Brown. And it was really great to be able to experience that education. And it's also a movie that I've heard about for such a long time and haven't seen. And I'm the one that pushed for us to watch this movie. And it's because, it's one of those movies where otherwise, I can't imagine I would have been I'm just going to put that on, pop some popcorn. It's one where, when I'm watching movies for this podcast is when I really watch movies, unless I'm in a movie theater. If I'm watching a movie at home, maybe I'm also doinking around on my phone too, but not while I was watching this. And I'm really glad for that because I really got to appreciate an incredible movie and some really amazing performances, and I'm grateful for that.
And just to throw in a little context that I don't know might be amusing was that the day that we decided we were going to do this as our next episode following Airheads, because that's a natural connection there, is we I texted John. I was home.
Let me break it down.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, for new listeners, or for anybody who's listened to an episode where we haven't talked about this before, Dan and I, Dan especially, are gout guys. It's a genetic thing. We've got it. It's a form of arthritis. Deal with it. Some people have gout, and it really messes with your foot.
Oh yeah, it can
Go
really,
on, Dan.
it can really hurt. But anyway, I was home anyway because my son was home from daycare for the day. I think it was one of those days. I know it was a day I was home and he was napping, and I was like, okay, I've got some movie time here. And yeah, it was like, okay, what are we doing? And it was funny because when John said my left foot, he knew that I was having a gout flare up, and that like.
And if I'm not mistaken, I know that for me, when I've experienced gout symptoms, it's been my left foot. I don't know if it's always the left foot or if it's sometimes the right foot, but for me, it's just been the left foot.
It is not always the left foot for me, though it has been ever since I got a cortisone shot in my right foot. And man, and I'm not one, I will say I don't shy away from needles when it comes to getting shots. Or like I donated blood the other day. But
you're a hero, by the way.
I shouted, we don't all wear capes. Like I said that I don't normally like get all worked up or swear or anything. Oh my God. The pain of that cortisone shot was maybe the one thing more painful than the actual gout, which was incredibly painful. So I have not had it.
If I was to explain the sensation of a gout flare up, and I'm just talking about the way that it feels, not the way that it appears. From my experience, it feels like you wake up one morning and it's just like, did I break my foot in the middle of the night?
That is exactly. Yeah. So the first time, and just roll with this tangent here, the very first time that I had gout, that's what I thought it was. I thought I broke my foot. Yeah. It feels like someone hit your foot with a sledgehammer. It went at its worst. But no, I thought that I broke my foot. And at the time I was instructing at performing arts camp, and I was assistant teaching stage combat. And I was like, did I do something? Like, did I hit my foot with something? Did I like my bed at the time was up against the wall? And I'm like, did I kick the wall really hard? I'm like, I've done that before, but that time my foot went through it.
It's a really intense pain.
It is,
and it sucks.
It is sucks. Terrible, but that is exactly how I felt. Yeah. And so when John suggested my left foot, which is like the foot that I had it in, and like that day it was really bad. And it was on spring break. That's why I was home. So anywho, I was like, haha, that's funny. And he was like, no, I actually would like to do that movie at some point. And for me, when I watch a movie, when I actually have time to watch a movie, I'm either like cleaning the kitchen and watching dishes. So it's not usually a movie for the podcast because I'm not, you know, I'm kind of paying attention. But I was, and he said that, and I was like, wow, I could watch that right now. And when else would I actually want to watch that? And I haven't seen it in a long time. So I was like, let's do it. And I turned it on right then and there. And it's like, I knew it was a great movie. I was a little just reluctant just because I knew how intense it got, but it does not get to the point like a Lorenzo's Oil where I'm like, I can't.
No, Lorenzo's Oil. I will never watch that again. Ugh, burned in my brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, remember when we had a shtick about Lorenzo's Oil?
We did. We did, didn't we? All because of that movie, Paul.
Yeah. So I realized that, when we're talking about a biopic, the idea of a sequel or, a remake, I guess you could do like a a different take on a biopic, maybe highlighting different things. But like, it's difficult to kind of to think about what we would normally think about for a movie that follows a different pattern. But I really did want to, try and test myself to see, what I could imagine happening with this movie. And I think that it really comes down to, art education. It's Christy Brown is somebody who had it not been for My Left Foot, who knows if I'd ever really know much about him. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities to honor Christy Brown without just making this movie again, because I feel like you make this movie again, you cast somebody with cerebral palsy. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you feel like there's more to tell? Are you doing it because you feel like there wasn't proper representation the first time around in the way that Christy Brown's life was? Or is it that you want to, I don't want to say right or wrong, because it's not strictly a wrong that, they did it with somebody who didn't have cerebral palsy, but, just to kind of do it again differently. And I don't think that there's a need for that. I don't think that you gain anything from it. So for me, I think that it's, honoring the artist, honoring the, film as a companion piece to the, the actual artist himself. Perhaps, creating some sort of, special advocacy group specifically for representation in films about people who have had, different disabilities. But, really using Christy Brown and My Left Foot as figureheads for it. That's the only thing I can think of. It's not anything traditionally that we would typically say, but I don't know. It's just the only thing that really made sense to me.
I guess, no, that makes sense. Having Christy Brown as a representative, kind of against ableism, and be like, when we prejudge people based on, what we see, or what, like, this is what we could, it's like how many people looked at Christy Brown and saw a brilliant artist in the making. Christy Brown is a young child. How many people would have passed Christy Brown, the adult on the street, and thought, oh, that, must be a brilliant artist right there. Exactly. Yeah. So, to me, I thought about theater, because I'm like, what's a venue in which you could tell the life story of Christy Brown in a different way and honor and respect, the fact that he was a man with cerebral palsy, where chances are you are not going to have an actor with cerebral palsy playing him. And it made me think of, now I have not seen the stage adaptation of the novel The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, but the main character and narrator of that is a boy with autism, and I know he is not played by actors. I know he's at least not always played by an actor with autism, but that it is written so that you are seeing it more like the inside, the inner mind of Christy Brown.
Yeah.
That it would be. So I feel like theater is a way where you could, and it wouldn't, I don't know if it would necessarily be, I'm not saying like My Left Foot, the musical. And by the way, I was like, wait a second, where have they done like, there was something, and I looked it up, and there was a musical done in like Scotland called My Left/Right Foot, and it was about a theater company mounting a musical. And although the one that I was thinking of was a Family Guy thing, it was like, just a quick, and it was Stewie doing the My Left Foot, the musical, and where he does like a tap dance routine with his left foot. So I was wondering, I was like, you could do a stage adaptation of whether it's My Left Foot, whether it is Down All the Days, whether it is something about the autobiographical, semi-autobiographical about Christy Brown. I think theater is the way to do it. I think that way you can also, you have like multimedia. So you have ways of showing, kind of like they do in the film, where they set up each segment, each segment showing his childhood and young adulthood is a flashback as his person like chaperone, I guess,
caretaker,
at this event is going through his book. And with each, it's kind of like each picture brings you to a different segment of the story. So I could see how that would be done, like theatrically.
Okay.
So that's what I would do with it. I don't know where, I don't know that there's anything else I would suggest, of course, love your suggestion about just kind of making sure that Christy Brown is out there and remembered, and not just as a great artist with cerebral palsy, but a great artist, period.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think that I like your idea. I think that there's definitely room to do something theatrically. Some of the other things that I was thinking, but really hadn't liked where my thought process was necessarily landing me. There's a lot of really great, important work that's being done to help capture different human experiences through virtual reality. And when I say that, I don't mean like, downloading a game on, the Quest or whatever, but like,
right.
In-person experiences that, help you kind of put yourself into somebody else's shoes for a bit. And so I was kind of going along that way too, but it's like, but what would that have to do with this exactly?
Well, and just to let you know,
disability.
I don't want to say I was wondering if you were going to go there, and I also don't want to say I was considering this as well, but that has definitely come up, just because of the possibilities of such a thing in both just building empathy. And also, I know from the like educational standpoint, to be able to use virtual reality to understand what it's like, let's say, for a student with dyslexia to read a page of text.
Right.
Like that would be invaluable for me. It would be in,
Yeah.
I mean, and not every, no two people's dyslexia are exactly the same.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But just to kind of, to be able to understand or to be able to slightly adjust the program based on what they describe, like the possibilities in that realm are, potentially so useful and helpful in understanding what others gaining a better understanding of what others experience. Not
absolutely. And
yeah,
any way that we can also push ourselves to step outside of our comfort zone is very important.
Yeah.
And speaking of somebody who stepped outside of their comfort zone, Dan, you want to talk about what we're doing on our next episode of the podcast?
Oh my goodness, what a wonderful segue. On our next episode, we'll be talking about a filmmaker stepping out of his comfort zone a bit, perhaps, telling the story of a man who steps out of his comfort zone. That would be Martin Scorsese's After Hours from 1985, starring Griffin Dunn, Rosanna Arquette, Linda Fiorentino,
Catherine
John
O'Hara,
Hurd,
Cheech and Chong,
Bronson Pinchot,
Terry Garr,
Martin
Scorsese. For
who
a
am I
moment.
forgetting? Scorsese himself. It's just such
John Hurd.
I believe I said John Hurd.
Did you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I must have been not listening to you.
John Hurd, because John Hurd is also in my teacher job. I'm showing the film The Great Debaters, and John Hurd is in that. So, when he pops up in After Hours, and I've seen After Hours many times.
Hey, you get both McAllister parents in After Hours.
Oh, I know, right. Anyway, we will be talking about that and more on the next episode. It's our first Scorsese, and
imagine that.
I'm
almost
excited.
200 episodes in, we haven't done a Scorsese yet.
I know. I think we've come close, but more. I'm sure we'll talk about Scorsese more on that episode.
Yeah, I think we will. We will.
Oh, we will.
Well, Dan, I have no clever way of bringing us into this with a My Left Foot, reference, but I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.